Last month's downing of a suspected Chinese spy balloon has triggered discussion on parts of the internet about the potential for an electromagnetic pulse attack that could take out the U.S. electrical grid. Whether or not such devices could be used successfully, this news did trigger more discussion about how woefully unprepared the country is when it comes to this type of attack. While Homeland Defense officials focus on different scenarios around terrorism or natural disasters, it seems like little is done around EMP discussions. Natural disasters and weather-related events such as hurricanes, floods, and earthquakes have shown how power outages can affect towns and cities, with several areas often taking days or weeks to restore power. It also shows how reliant we are on the electrical grid, and it's a nightmare scenario to think about how we would live and survive without electricity. So we're going to talk about whether or not we could rebuild following an EMP, such an EMP attack, coming up today on Today in Tech. Hi, everybody. I'm Keith Shaw. Welcome to Today in Tech. My guest today is a best-selling author. This is Dr. William R. Forstchen. He is the author of the book called 1 Second After. It's the first of a series of books about what happens to the world following an electromagnetic pulse, or EMP, attack. Dr. Forstchen holds a PhD in history from Purdue University with a specialization in military history and has written more than 40 books on this, not on this subject, but 40 books, and 1 Second After was published in 2009. Dr. Forstchen, welcome. I'm going to just call you Bill from now on.
Yeah. Good to be with you this morning.
So let's get right to it. A lot of this news has sort of triggered discussion about EMP attacks. You wrote the book in 2009. Since then, how has the world changed, either for the better or for worse, in terms of, I guess, the country's preparedness for such an attack?
Well, maybe just a 30-second primer on EMP,
Sure.
Electromagnetic pulse. It's generated by lofting a small nuclear weapon, 40 to 60 kiloton range, about 4 to 5 times that of a Hiroshima bomb. Lofting it 200 miles above, it has to be above the Earth's atmosphere. When the weapon detonates, it sets up a vast electrical discharge. It's known as the Compton effect. That cascades down to the Earth's surface. Literally 1 second after detonation, it starts shorting off the power grid of the United States. Worst case scenario, 3 weapons, eastern United States, mid, and the California coast. Big players in this would be Korea or Iran. Mm-hmm. The effect is catastrophic. Electricity is the fundamental building block of our society. We don't even think about it. Throw the switch, turn the heater on, whatever.
Right.
But according to 2 congressional studies done about 10, 15 years ago, this is the bad number. 90% of Americans would perish a year after such an attack.
And when did you first start sort of hearing about this? When you were thinking about either writing the book, did you hear about this and said, "Oh, this would be a good sort of topic for a book"? Because you've written 4 of these, and these are fiction-based books, but they're based in reality, correct?
Well, it started in 1991 when I was in grad school. There was a massive power outage in Indiana. I was at Purdue, because of a once in 500-year electrical, ice storm. Mm-hmm. The whole grid went down. Lafayette, Indiana lost power for up to 30 days. I mean, everything was gone. The pylons, the high tension lines. Within about 5 days, that town went squirrely. This is a university town. People were panicking. People were literally following power trucks that they had to put National Guardsmen on them. I filed it into the back of my brain. Mm-hmm. And 15 years later, that started to evolve into a book where I set the whole thing in a small town, my town in Black Mountain, North Carolina. What would happen to my town if the power went off and didn't come back on? So book came out in 2009, and it's still on a bestsellers list at time. It just keeps cascading.
Yeah. And you're about to publish the 5th book in the series, is that correct?
4th book.
Oh,
I turned that in 2 weeks ago, and that will be out sort of around the middle of July.
Okay, so and obviously with the news of the spy balloon and sort of the EMP kind of attack idea came bubbling up again. I mean, we've heard about sort of nuclear attacks and there was a TV series recently called The Last of Us, which focused on sort of a pandemic type of thing. We've lived through COVID-19, but now we're starting to see the EMP stuff kind of come up again. I mean, just reading about sort of the effects, and it's not just like devastation to it's like everything. Like you're explaining the car thing. Like I didn't realize we wouldn't be able to use cars right after an EMP attack.
You remember Maslow's hierarchy of needs you learned in high school, air and that.
Yep.
Well, let's go to the Maslow hierarchy of needs for an electronic and electrical society. We lose power. Now, I'll ask you a direct question.
Sure.
Where are you located right now?
I'm in New England, so right outside of Boston.
Oh, okay. Where do you get your water?
From a well from an underground well.
All right.
So which is pumped through electricity.
Right. You see right there that you mentioned before we went on the air, you woke up at 5 o'clock this morning thinking about this. It starts with, of course, we lose our water supply instantly. 24 hours later, people are desperate for that. Average town has about 20 days worth of food on hand, from what's in your fridge to what's pulling up at the supermarket. Excuse me. We lose all of that. So we're out of food. We're out of heating. If you're in New England, we're out of heating. Down here in the South, we don't have air conditioning in the summer. That can be catastrophic in the community for the elderly. Medication. About 20 to 30% of all Americans rely on some kind of medication. Well, the pharmacy doesn't work anymore. And so on and so on. And then, of course, command and control. What happens in big cities, the bad guys can start taking over within a matter of hours.
Right.
First looting the stores, but then you're walking down the street, say 5 days after an event, and you got a hamburger and a Coke. What might people be willing to do to you to get that hamburger and Coke if they're desperate after 5 days?
Right.
So all these different factors come together into what we could call like a perfect storm. One other example, there's about 3,000 commercial aircraft over the United States at any given time at midday. Most of them, they won't work. You even pay a major plane, it loses its computer. Without the computers, none of the control surfaces work. You can have Sully up front, remember Sully from the Hudson River?
Yeah.
Doesn't matter anymore.
Right.
The thing's going to fall like a rock.
Do you think that would be the sort of the first signal that something was going on? I mean, or would it be like, how would we know that something like this had happened? Because again, if the power just goes out, like in the studio right now, we'd be like, oh, there's just a power outage. Like how long before we start realizing that something like bigger has happened than just sort of a power outage in the building or the town or the state or whatever?
Okay, just a quick funny story.
Okay.
Book comes out, and I teach at a wonderful small college, Monterey College. I actually had some meetings with administration and staff on what do we do if this happens. A month or two later, daughter and I are watching a thunderstorm coming up the valley. Boom. The entire grid for this mountain community, gone. My daughter looks at me and goes, Daddy? I said, turn on your cell phone. It works. Well,
Okay.
About a minute later, the phone rings. It was a top administrator at the school. He said, oh my God, Bill, is this it? And I just couldn't resist. I said, yeah, we're screwed.
So obviously, if your cell phone worked, then it's probably not an EMP.
Cell phones. Well, think about, remember 9/11? We had cell phones then. Imagine if 9/11 had hit. We're seeing it on TV. The entire nation is watching. And then suddenly the communication grid is gone. Everything goes blank.
Right.
So we're going to lose cell phones and all of that. We lose everything. And we're sitting in the dark alone. And after 6 hours, 12 hours, we start going, I think this could be bad.
Right. Okay. So obviously, if it was a big attack, we would not have cell phones and communications would be out. So that would probably be a clue of that we should start doing something. But then we go out into our car, we realize our car isn't working, right?
Yeah.
And explain why our car wouldn't work.
All right, most cars made after about 1980 are increasingly relying on computers. And it only takes, I was just talking with a car expert a couple of days ago. He said, if only one or two of the components within the car's electrical computer system gets hit, the whole rest of the car starts to go offline. I've seen some figures that said 90% of cars would be totaled. Others say 10%. But let me say this. Have you ever been in Boston at 5 o'clock in the afternoon and one car broke down?
Oh, yeah.
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 I used to live up there, so I know. Imagine if 10% of the cars short off. That gridlocks the system.
And if I was actually traveling in a car, would it shut down too? If I was driving like home on the Mass Pike,
beg your pardon? If you were actually driving?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're out driving home and suddenly, boom, the car shorts off and it just rolls to a stop.
Right. Okay. So there would probably be massive traffic jams wherever anybody was located. That's if a plane's not falling on me too, right? So
yeah.
All right. Let's say I survive that, and I get out of the
office. Okay, let's do it that way.
Yeah.
You survive that, then what?
Okay. Well, my first thought is that I'm going to try to get to my house.
Okay.
Okay. Because I want to find my wife and my kids. And and they might be either at home or at school, or I think that my first plan is to tell my family like let's at least meet at the house somewhere. Now I've got like a 30 to 40 mile walk.
Let's make it 5 miles. Just 5 miles.
All right. Well, all right. Give me the benefit of being 5 miles away.
Okay.
What am I? Do I have to fight off animals? Like what? Because that was another thought. I was going to fight off the coyotes.
If you hear my dogs barking, we have a bear wandering around here today. But that's North Carolina.
Okay.
No, you're not going to have to fight off animals. And for the first, it's any number of times. In the first hours, people will be relatively civil to each other.
Right.
In terms of what's going down. Can I help you, ma'am? Here, let me help you across this street. But at what point does that start changing from being civil to, I got to think of myself, to get the blank away from me or you're going to have it? Within about 24 hours, it's going to start to get squirrely. And the big factor right at the start is water. If you recall Sandy, New York City, 2012.
Yep.
The following day, people were lined up around the block at McDonald's waving $100 bills for a sack of hamburgers. And yet the guy at McDonald's was saying, first of all, I can't cook it. We don't have electricity. Secondly, the computers don't work. Third, it's closed. Get the blank away from here.
Right.
Go to Starbucks. Well, I'll charge my phone back up. Well, that ain't working.
Right.
So it starts a cascading series of events from being a civil society to a very uncivil society within a matter of days.
Okay, so the key would be for survival would just be to sort of get back to my house and then make sure I have enough food and water for about a month. You're thinking, or more?
Good. Okay, first of all, since I am a little paranoid because of writing these books.
Yeah.
My daughter, and before we separated, my daughter, my wife, and I, we had the plan. Okay, if anything happens, you walk home because you're only 3 miles away, and then stay at home. But your average community, your average person, okay, somebody listening to this, and they live in an apartment with their kid and their husband, do they have enough water to last a week even before they have to go out on the street? I urge all people, not only because of EMP, but because of floods, hurricanes, whatever, or the big snowstorms up your way, have a month's worth of supplies. If need be, when you're done with a bottle of Coke, clean it out, fill it with water. Have some Campbell's soup, and dried soup and things like that on hand. Mm-hmm. For New England, of course, you got to have some sort of heating system that's safe, that's non-electrical, that won't kill you with carbon monoxide poisoning. How to cook your food. These become the fundamental basic building blocks of staying alive.
Right. And so I mean, that's the first thing I was starting to do this morning as I started filling up my bottles with water because I read I read all this stuff. Now, now obviously certain areas might be better off than others. I think I asked you this question about, if I lived in a city, I think the cities would be a lot harder to sort of survive in than maybe either a small town or a suburban area. Explain why the urban areas would be doomed. This is a real peppy topic today.
It's a bummer, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. We're going to get to some hope near the end, I think.
Okay. First of all, I would never want to be in a city.
Yeah.
I think the ideal locations, if you're going to survive this at least for a while, rural or small town America. A key component here is people knowing each other. In a city, you don't know your neighbor. Here in my little Mountain Cove, I know all my neighbors. If things go bad, we know how to take care of each other. One of them's a nurse. We know we can rely on things there. I know the pharmacist in town. But overall, cities would be the worst place to be, because what happens when people get thirsty and there's no more food? Where do you think they go? They start walking out of the cities.
Right.
I'll go to Aunt Edith's place. It's 30 miles away. Well, that's a long 30 miles on foot.
Right.
You most likely haven't hiked that far since you were a Boy Scout.
Right. Okay. So let's say I sort of make it home, and then maybe I've teamed up with a bunch of neighbors. Do we then sort of gather in my town? My town's about 10,000 people. Is that too big? Is that too, or is that like the right size to sort of figure out, organize, and maybe start working towards some sort of rebuilding effort? Or is it just mass survival at that point, or just sort of?
Again, relying on neighbors. I live in the Christian South, your church group, things like that, where people, and I've talked with more than one minister. Do you have a plan to help your community survive this type of event? It's important to learn how to work together with a good set of people, because the average American doesn't know diddly about the basic fundamental building blocks of living.
Right.
You know where the toilet, after the toilet flushes, do you know how it all works?
You're going to ask me this right now. No, sort of. No, probably
we don't.
Not. No.
I don't either.
It goes into our sewer system.
Yeah, and then where does it go?
It goes I think, to the water treatment plant.
Yeah, well, example right there. If the water treatment plant is shut down,
they're
going to have to throw a pipe and just empty it right into the river. That's the procedure.
Right.
So another thing, in about 5 to 7 days, you're going to start having massive outbreaks of disease.
Yeah.
Salmonella is a big one. Waterborne diseases. The other scenario I really fear is what happens to nursing homes.
Right.
Those people do not stand a chance, and we have about 2 million people in some sort of assisted care systems. Well, the nurses don't show up anymore because they're trying to take care of their families.
Right.
Boy, it's a bad scenario, isn't it? And I write this stuff.
All right. How many people have come up to you and then said, well, we'll rely on sort of our local officials, maybe a local police? I mean, I'm not even going to bring in the federal government at this point or state government. Like, do you think that there would be too much of a reliance on those types of people to sort of have a plan, and they probably don't at this point? Or they're just trying to create or stop mobs from killing each other, right?
Okay, good example.
Okay.
When I was working on the book, I was close friends with the police chief. Always a great friend to have. All right. So I go to Jack's office. We're sitting there, and I'm telling the scenario, and I say, Jack, if it happens, what's the first thing you would do?
Mm-hmm.
He actually went and he started to pick up the phone, and he said, oh, blank, the phones don't work anymore. I don't know how to communicate with my own people.
Right.
You have handheld radios? Yeah, but are some of them shielded, protected in what's called a Faraday cage? I went to the pharmacist. She started crying. She actually started crying at the end of an hour saying, oh my God, the number of people who will die.
Yeah.
A big resource who I just saw yesterday morning to get my dogs get fixed is the veterinarian. That guy has enough medical supplies on hand to knock out a horse. Your average doctor anymore, he doesn't have anything in his office. So all of this just starts to unravel too quickly. That's why the congressional studies, which are, I think, quite valid, the first time I saw 90% of us are going to die, I thought it was tinfoil hat stuff.
Right.
This is crazy. It can't be that bad. But after studying it, writing it, and working on it over the last 15 years, I think the number is very valid.
Okay. And so does that cause you to sort of hide in a bunker and just be like,
yeah, I have a big concrete bunker. No.
I mean, I think when we talked before the show, you said to me that you're an optimist by nature, and like that kind of floored me. That having written all this stuff, that you would still be an optimist. Can you explain sort of that feeling?
I believe EMP, every military system since back to the Romans. When they first made a catapult, the famous cry of a Greek general who said, "Oh, Hercules, valor no longer counts." Ever since the beginning, military systems have been used. Poison gas, World War I, nuclear weapons, World War II.
Yep.
EMP is inevitable. It's a question of when. Now, I can go crazy. I can lie awake at 2 a.m. and stare at the ceiling after conversations with some people. Or I go on living. I wrote the book 15 years ago. I even put in the foreword. I pray to God that when my daughter hits her 40s and 50s, her world is safe.
Right.
Because that would mean I was simply a crank and it never really happened.
Okay.
I just pray to God. I'm a Christian. I just pray to God, get us through another day. Maybe it won't happen. I think the ideal situation would be it did happen somewhere. The effects are seen. And then the rest of us wake up and go, oh my God, that could be us next.
Right.
Example, 9/11.
Right.
Now, we overreacted with airplane security and such, but finally we put security in place.
Right. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about sort of potentially preparing for this. What would it take for us on either a national scale or state or local of kind of effect of, all right, let's try to get ready for something like this. Obviously, if you're an individual in your house, you can start sort of preparing for the worst case scenario there. But how do we protect sort of our infrastructure so that maybe the complete grid doesn't go down and we are able to sort of save some of the electrical power?
Okay, 2 points there. I just I've talked to them several times at conferences, gone out and meet with them. The South Carolina consortium of, the power companies down there, they are reacting. They are working vigorously to start trying to build stronger, robust systems that can resist an EMP. Mm-hmm. That's crucial. So that's sort of like a local, state level. The other side of the coin, national, I'm furious. I am. I'm actually furious about this. The previous administration under Trump, not to go into politics,
right,
mandated a massive study shortly before he left office of DOD, DOE, FAA, all of them, to come back with a report 6 months later on what we have to do and what legislation is needed to protect us from EMP. Trump was taking it as a top security concern. Guess what happened with the current administration the day they got elected?
Yeah.
One of those executive orders, they killed the study. We're spending $1 trillion, $1 trillion, a big, how many zeros behind that? On green energy. We're not spending a dime on robusting and bringing our system up to a modern standard that can resist an EMP.
Do you think that that's just because we as Americans tend to be reactive rather than proactive?
You got it exactly.
Yeah.
We worry about it the day, I got to get my car into the shop next week. Something's starting to squeak. Well, suddenly it breaks down. You go, oh no, I should have done this yesterday. We're that way with almost everything in our lives. We react rather than logically plan ahead.
Yeah.
And when it comes to one other statistic. DOE did a study about 8 or 10 years ago. The average component in our electrical grid is 40 years old. We're running our electricity over a 40-year-old system. We don't have a stockpile of emergency equipment to bring things back online. It goes down. Guess where we get almost all our major electrical components from?
From China.
Take a guess.
Yeah.
Just, it's a Jeopardy question. Yeah, exactly.
Well, yeah. What is China?
Yeah. We certainly don't get it from Niger or Chad. We get it from China. Do you think they're going to help us?
Yeah.
If the whole grid went down?
No, probably not. So, okay.
Okay, what else?
So is it like, what would sort of then rebuilding look like I want to go back to the hardening. Could like a local town basically harden their grid, or no, it all requires utility companies and federal and state efforts?
Again, as I mentioned, some areas like South Carolina, they're working hard to figure out, okay, on a very tight budget, can we at least harden some of our electrical grid, what I call lifelines of recovery, that if even 10% of the grid survives, you can build off of that.
Yeah.
Second, we don't have the stockpile of emergency components on hand. And that's true across the board. World War II, where was all our equipment made? United States. We built the most powerful army in the world. We don't have those components today that we're manufacturing inside the United States and stockpiling at key locations. A very close friend of mine who passed away a couple of months ago was an expert on this, Dr. Peter Pry. He said $2 to $3 billion a year would go far towards securing parts of the grid.
Right.
Oh, okay. I think that's very optimistic of poor Peter, who I miss a lot. Even if it's 20 or 30 billion, what the heck is another $30 billion these days?
Right.
We throw the figures around.
Right.
Stockpiling key components that could be quickly reinstalled, wiring systems, transformers and such, it would ameliorate the worst of this.
All right. And so you've now written 4 books around this. The 4th one's coming out. It's on the bestseller list. So there's enough people out there that have read sort of these books. Have you been approached by Hollywood, or, because we've seen, sort of post-apocalyptic kind of stories before, but nothing on this level. Have you been approached, or do they look at the topic and go, oh, that would never happen, or that's just too crazy? And like,
okay, first of all, Hollywood sucks. Every single film, oh no, it's another disaster flick, and I'll watch it for 15 minutes, get sick to my stomach, and turn it off.
Okay.
They get it wrong. Sensationalized all the time. I do. I've been, I have in the works. I have the agent. I have the producers and all that. We are working. We have had 2 scripts. We're just waiting for a green light someplace.
Right.
But unfortunately, like Netflix and others want to approach, oh, well, we got a great disaster film this year with zombies from Mars.
Yeah.
I'll go into a Tourette syndrome if I talk too much about how stupid Hollywood is.
Do you watch any other shows that have, like, I was thinking about this, about how many different types of either shows or movies have had EMP sort of attacks, and some of them were really localized, some of them didn't work at all, or the science wasn't right. I didn't even realize the GoldenEye movie was actually about an EMP, and this was in the 90s. Was sort of a James Bond had to stop a potential EMP attack over London, and then it never did. You never saw the effects of it. But then, in the other one that I remember was Ocean's 11. They called it the pitch. And then it was like, it went out for like 10 seconds, and then the electric power came back on. So that's sort of misleading, right? Because the power is not going to immediately come back on.
UEMP, you've done it permanently.
Yeah.
All these different. I've only seen one film that did it right, and that was 30 years ago. The nuclear war movie, The Day After, with Jason Robards. He's trying to get home to his family.
Yep.
And suddenly there's a pop of light in the sky. And then instantly everything shuts down.
Yep.
It's the only one. It shuts down. It doesn't come back. I mean, come on. It's almost the equivalent. You take your car, you drive it off a cliff, and you go, oh, crap, I'll get it back in 2 minutes and we'll drive away.
Right.
It doesn't.
Yeah.
It doesn't come back after Ocean's 11 just made me sick. You know how many movies I've watched? I only get 30 minutes into it. I just go, that's stupid.
All right. So are you, and I asked you this before, like, do you sleep at night? Because obviously I woke up this morning going, I've got no chance of surviving at all, because they're not going to need YouTube hosts in the future. I better start learning how to like use a saw or an axe and store that water. I'm going to start right now. How do you sort of like live each day? And I think you sort of brought this up that you are optimistic. But do you think like, just us talking about this will help?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's why I am on the talk show and interview network.
Yeah.
We have to raise public awareness. First of all, your own security. Have a month's worth of food and water and such on hand. Very key. If you're relying on any kind of medication, find a legal way to stockpile at least several months or more. One example of that is pancreatic enzyme disorder. You don't get your medication within a week, you start dying.
Yeah.
Transplants. They don't take that medication every day, they start dying. And then again, networking with other people who are like-minded, are not taking this as tinfoil hat stuff, but a real threat. But you can't go crazy over it. You have to live your life in a good manner.
Yeah, it does feel like there needs to be a balance between ignoring the problem completely and becoming like a doomsday prepper bunker mentality type thing, and having a stockpile of ammunition and guns in the basement, right? Somewhere in between there, right?
Have you ever been to a gun show?
No, I have not.
Oh God, I remember my mentor from grad school and he once said, "This will doubt your belief in the Second Amendment." He was Austrian Jewish. He was so funny. But you go into a gun show, and this squirrely little guy who sounds like Peter Lorre. Oh, look at this 50 caliber rifle. I can kill you from a mile away. It's just. You can go overboard. Yeah, I have a gun. It's sitting just off camera.
Yeah.
Am I running around you waving it all the time saying the end is nigh? No.
Right.
Lead a good life and prepare yourself.
Okay, and obviously these tips that you're kind of giving can be useful for just preparing for a natural disaster or a flood or an extended blizzard or something like that, right? So it's not necessarily that a nationwide EMP attack. Yeah, that would be horrendous. But even if there was a smaller one, at least we would have some hope that other cities and towns around us or regions would be able to help us eventually kind of rebuild.
A key component there is a robust foreign policy, which again we had with. I don't want to get into politics.
Okay.
But you need to project a robust foreign policy to third world players in particular, North Korea, Iran, which are always rattling the saber, and just make it clear: don't even think about it.
Right.
Don't even twitch a muscle in this direction. One scenario that scares me is China hands off some weapons and equipment to a third world player. So go out and do it.
Yeah.
North Korea scares me because their illustrious leader, suppose he wakes up tomorrow and he finds out I'm terminal. Well, I'll take America with me.
Oof, yeah.
That's the type of scary scenario. We do need some better missile defense systems. Right now, we only have them up on the Alaskan coast, to counteract the Russians. We need better defense systems as well. But that costs money, a lot of money.
Right. Okay, so if there was sort of one piece of advice then, I guess, for an average viewer of this show, just to sort of, so not bury their head in the sand, but sort of start to get ready or start to at least think about it and not think about it all the time, but just sort of to get ready. What should they do? Should obviously prepare your family first and then talk to your neighbors and such.
Well, the old Boy Scout motto, be prepared.
There you go.
Absolutely be prepared. People with families, do simple things like, okay, if something goes down, we have a rendezvous point. I won't be able to reach you by phone. Have what I call a God bag in your car. Get out of Dodge. A couple of days worth of water, so maybe an MRE, something for security, and then something most people don't think about, some silver coins. $quarter and $half and a silver dollar might be the trade item to get you through something, because waving $100 bill or your credit card ain't going to work.
And definitely not Venmo.
Here locally. What?
Definitely not Venmo.
No.
All right.
And also, have a couple of days of your medication, tucked in the glove compartment. I have a bit of an irregular heartbeat. I take one pill a day. If I miss the pill for 3 or 4 days, I start feeling a bit squirrely.
Yeah.
So these are things to think about.
And so, do the characters in your book, do they get more optimistic, or is it just dreariness and doom and gloom in the 3 books or the 4 books?
And they all die in the end.
Yeah.
No. No. The component of my book that was so important, and the main characters live in my small town, a real town. I based a lot of characters on it, and my college, is a realization. The only way we're going to get through this as a community is as a community working together, helping those who need help, and defending, yes, and then planning realistically for how we're going to get through the next 6 months, the next year, and still have food on hand, water supply, medication, etc.
All right. And so the next book is out in a couple months, you said?
Yeah. There's 4 books now in the series. Oh, yes, the promo moment.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah,
Plug the
1
book.
second after, then 1 year after, and the final day. You can get them all on Amazon, and the next book out will be 5 years after, which will be out in July.
All right, and good luck. Good luck with dealing with the Hollywood types if you can. If that does progress, I think it would be a fascinating look at sort of a lot of these rebuilding efforts.
Well, a very dumb. Okay, I'm not sexist. You heard about the dumb blonde in Hollywood?
Okay. No.
She was so stupid she dated a book writer. That's a joke amongst us authors.
All right. All right. All right, Bill, thanks again for joining us on the show. Very fascinating topic. Thanks.
Thank you, and get the message out.
All right. And that's all the time we've got for today's episode. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and add any comments you have below. And join us each week for new episodes of Today in Tech. Have a great day, and we'll see you next time.